I call Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Mr Chairman, this really is the not so much the meat of the bill, but the meat and potatoes of the bill. It is the crucial section that establishes a whole new regime of dispute resolution in the family jurisdiction. And aside from the Marjorie Proop's rendition that we had when we had the committee stage on the first part of the bill, where the Minister admonished every couple in New Zealand and told them to pull their socks up and behave themselves and sort out their difficult affairs, this is the part of the bill that is apparently meant to deliver this whole new outbreak of peace in family circles, particularly those families who are having difficulty keeping their relationships together. And, Mr Chairman, if Marjorie Proop's is going to be our guide when it comes to resolving family disputes, then we'd better get it right. Because the problem with the regime that is set up now is that there is very little safeguard for couples who have difficulty understanding the magnitude of the decisions they are being called upon to make, particularly in relation to the care of children that are the subject of a marital dissolution or a marital dispute. And this regime depends upon couples acting like very comfortable, middle-class, rational, sensible people who have got their emotions under control, their sense of grief under control, and can make perfectly sensible decisions. Now, Pollyanna would have difficulty finding those couples when they are going through a marital dissolution. Marjorie Proop's would do as well, but we are now have a regime that is going to that no doubt drafted by well-meaning officials and a well-meaning minister in the comfort of their leather-bound and leather-clad chairs, but actually bears very little relation to the reality of marital dispute, and that is the disappointing thing about it. And so, Mr Chairman, going through some of the key aspects, let's look at Clause 60. Clause 60 allows or requires the facilitators who are to be appointed to conduct these dispute resolution procedures to be accredited by the Ministry, and they have to no doubt meet criteria. But when you have a look at sub-clause 3 of Clause 60, you will see that any appointment can be made on any conditions whatsoever. There is no oversight by the Minister, no oversight at all, and therefore no grounds for accountability. So the question to the Minister is this: what accountability is there going to be when it comes to appointing people who will be playing this crucial role of assisting separating couples to deal with their outstanding issues? What accountability is there going to be? How do we know that these people are going to be fit and suited to the task? How can couples who are going through this emotional turmoil be assured by those who give them advice, whether informal or formal, if they can afford it, that the people who are going to be entering the most intimate and delicate parts of their lives, how can they be assured that these people are fit and up to the task? Because they can be appointed on any terms and conditions that the Secretary thinks fit. And, Mr Chairman, I simply say that is not good enough. And a Minister who was giving proper thought to the drafting of this bill would not allow a power to be given against which there can be no accountability. And we don't want lazy drafting from lazy ministers. We don't need the Marjorie Proop's view of the world, that we all just pull our socks up and behave ourselves. We actually need proper accountability. We come to the crucial part, which is Clause 60B. And before we get to that, I just want to make this point. And because a hard-working minister would have picked this up, and it is the drafting in Clause 60A, which provides the indefinite article before the abbreviated term FDR. It should be the definite. It should be the proper indefinite article, not an FDR. That is the oral version. That's what you say when you're reading it out. But it was properly drafted, we would have a FDR provider referred to there, not an. But I want to come to Clause 60B and sub-clause 5, because this is really where the rubber meets the road. And this allows the FDR provider, this accredited person who is accredited by the Secretary of Justice on no conditions at all that we're ever going to know about, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Call Andrew Little.
The FDR provider who was appointed on conditions that none of us will ever know about, because there will be no accountability about it. But this allows the FDR provider to terminate a facilitated or mediated session if they decide that the dispute can't be resolved within a reasonable time. And I just wonder what that really will mean in practice. It will mean that an FDR provider who, having been paid their $900 out of the pockets of the couple in dispute, because they have to pick up that cost, there's no assistance for that. Once the FDR provider is satisfied that their $900 worth of value has been exhausted, what are they going to do? No, there's no interest in them in carrying it on, because remember, these facilitators are all private providers. They get the $900 up front, and what are they going to do? Well, it's very clear what they're going to do. When it just gets too hard and time runs out, that's it. They're out ski. They're off. They will write to the judge and say, or to the family court and say, that's it, I've done my bit. These are too hard for me. Look, these are people with real emotions. They want me to deal with that. These are people with children who actually need to know that they've been giving a proper resolution. It's all too hard. And I've done $900 worth of my time, and I'm out of here. That's what that will mean. That's what that will do. And so this is not about resolving family disputes in the spirit of proper mediation and resolution and conciliation, even reconciliation if possible. This is an economic transaction, and couples will be forced into it because this is mandatory, and there will be no way out. And it's the facilitator who can decide when they've had enough, when they've had $900 worth. That's the insidious thing about it. That's the insidious thing about it. And it goes on, of course, in subclause 9 of that clause, of clause 60B, to say that FDR, or says an FDR provider, once again got the indefinite article, should be a FDR provider cannot be required to attend court to explain their opinion about why it should all come to an end. So they have absolute carte blanche control, and they are not called to account. So the appointment of them, there is no accountability around it. Their decision to terminate a mediation process, there is no accountability around it. What sort of process is this? It's a money-making scheme for those who get accredited by the Secretary of Justice. And unfortunately, the track record of this government looking after their mates when it comes to these sorts of things gives me no reassurance at all that we are going to have a quality system of family dispute resolution. This is the shameful part of it. This is the shameful part of it. And so, Mr. Chairman, we are concerned about this process. This is a process that will be compulsory for couples. There is very little accountability around it. They are expected, according to our Marjorie Proop's minister, to be totally rational, to be totally sensible, be in full grip of their faculties, and resolve the most difficult, the most emotional dispute that any couple, any person would ever get into, the separation of their marriage or their partnership. That is an impossible ask. And then we're going to put in place these people who are not equipped to give legal advice, but will be asking couples to make decisions that have significant legal effect, have a huge impact not only on them, but on any children of the partnership or the marriage. And they are expected to do that in a process in which those mediators, those facilitators, have no accountability at all. And they are expected to stump up $900 to boot. And part of the process of agreement can be a mediator, if they do get to the end of resolving the disputes, can order how much of that $900 can be apportioned between the couple. This is not a recipe for finding a resolution. This is a recipe for disaster. This is the distressing thing about it. And actually what I predict we will see is more couples will find a reason to get before a judge, because what people want to know is not only somebody who is independent and dispassionate and understands these things and has a background in it, but that they understand the legal impact of what they are doing, because the facilitators won't have that. The minister's regime under this bill is to deprive people of legal advice. Those who need legal aid, and we'll come on to that in a later section of this bill, because that's being whittled back as well, will get very little legal aid and assistance before they get into this process, and none while they are in it. And so this is setting us up for a regime of failure, despondency, despair, and I would say more use of the family court and judicial resources than we have ever seen before. That's the failure of this bill. It is a disgrace, Mr Chairman, and that's why we are opposed to it.
Mr Chair.
The Honourable Judith Collins.
Oh, Mr Chair, far be it from me to sit back